record.
Now, where did I forgot where we left off.
When we left off, you were talking about Prince and the fact of you had never asked for a dime from Prince. That's where we left off.
Yeah, right, yeah, and a lot of people find that surprising, that I didn't take any money from him and stuff, and it was because of my mentors, Little Anthony and the Imperials. I mean, these guys, each one of these guys were my mentors.
Right.
And they said to me, they said, Pepe, when all you do is pass this on, you pass it on, and this is what I was doing. I was passing it on. I wasn't looking, look, I knew how hard it is for a new artist to break in this business. I mean, it's difficult.
Right.
If you got over 1,000 records that come out every week, I mean, what are your odds that you're going to get play? Right. You know what I mean? And all this. So I wasn't, asking anything from him. And then when Prince got robbed at Dell's Tire Mart, where he was rehearsing and auditioning band members for his band, I invited him to come to my house, And I said, no, you're going to rehearse at my house. I said, ain't nobody come. Look, I'm from Brooklyn. Ain't nobody going to come in my house and take anything, baby. I mean, that's how we roll. And so he practiced there for 6 months and auditioned a couple of players. And then after that, I produced his first concert, at the Capri Theater, the tickets, lighting, security, the whole bit,
Wow.
But Warner Brothers didn't think he was ready at that time, but, that was on them.
That was on them. They didn't think he was ready, but he was definitely ready and had that long and successful career. I know that I've worked on nonprofit radio stations. My folks actually started a nonprofit radio station up in rural North Carolina back in the mid 70s that was on for about somewhere between 10 and 12 years, and all in that kind of space. It was on until the mid 80s, mid to late 80s. But I do know that a lot of people complain about the fact that there are basically 3 power brokers in the radio lands and all of that, whether it's Clear Channel, Radio One, or a number of other things. So I was just wondering what's your take on the modern music industry? Like I said, you've been in it for
Clear Channel. Clear Channel is the biggest one.
Right.
Yeah, Clear Channel, Radio One, there's another one I can't remember, but But yeah, radio has changed. The business has changed. I remember, when I was getting a deal for my band, I would go into Manhattan and look on the directory and find out what floor RCA Records was on, or Sony, or Columbia, or Brunswick, and, you find the floor and you go to the elevator and you go up to the floor, and then you ask the receptionist to see the A&R guy and everything. And, he would come out and, and you go into his office and listen to the music and but now you can't even get in the building.
Wow.
You can't even get in the building now, I mean? So it totally changed, and I've seen it happen. I've seen it like totally change, like overnight. And, it's crazy. I know that we also talked about this Morris Day incident, argument that he had with Prince during Purple Rain, and the closing of the rap of Purple Rain. And after that, Morris left. I mean, he left Minneapolis.
Wow.
And he went to California. And then a couple of weeks later, he's calling me up and he goes, Pepe, you got to help me, man. He said, Prince is trying to destroy me. And I'm going like, what? What are you talking about? He's trying to destroy me, man, because they had the same accountant, and business people. So, and the movie was getting ready to, was in editing, was getting ready to come out. And every time media would ask for Morris Day, the Prince people would say, oh, Morris is not available. He's not available. And they couldn't get to him. So he called me up and says, man, you got to help me. So I said, okay, listen, I said, first of all, don't shake hands with nobody. Don't sign nothing. Don't you do nothing
Right.
until I get there, you know. So I go to LA. He lived in Santa Monica, and he was behind in his rent payment for his apartment in Santa Monica because he couldn't get no money,
Right.
you know. And so there was an income tax check that was due to him, federal. I believe it was $17,000 or $27,000 income tax return. And so Morris's mom had called up the accountant who was accountant for Prince and Morris, and told him, you know, look, this is a federal offense if you don't give him his money,
Right.
you know. And they couriered it over, and so that's how he got caught up with his rent. I was buying food, you know, and he got his Porsche out of the shop, and then we started shopping, you know, for people to represent him. So I found this attorney, David Braun, and his accountants. I found some new accountants, Renner, and now we had to find him a manager, and we went to Sandy Gallen. Sandy Gallen had managed Michael Jackson, Whoopi Goldberg, Mac Davis, Dolly Parton, you know. So Sandy started working with Morris during that time, and he sent us both on the East Coast to do interviews. We did People magazine, we did all this other stuff and everything. And so he was back, and then we went to the president of Warner Brothers and Mo Austin, you know, who just recently passed away, but he got us tickets, you know, to the premiere of the movie and everything. So that worked out, and he gave us money. We went and got clothes made and everything, 2 limos, bodyguards and everything. And, you know, and to combat Prince from trying to destroy him, you know. And then all of this, I forgot to mention, is on my book.
Yeah.
In my book, If You See Me, My 6-Decade Journey in Rock and Roll. And it has all those stories on there about meeting Elvis, Jimi Hendrix, how the Minneapolis Sound got started with, you know, me, Prince, Andre, and then how it spread out to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, you know, because all of us had the same friends. All of us was together, you know.
I was going to get to one of those people you mentioned, which is actually Elvis and everything, because I know some people are upset with Elvis because they think that Elvis kind of borrowed from our culture. And there's that whole talk of cultural appropriation and whether he borrowed and did not give correct enough credit and all in that space. But you had the pleasure of meeting the man. So when you hear those arguments, what are your thoughts? And did Elvis respect the African American performers that he worked with and all in that space? And did he acknowledge the blues music? Because I'm a big blues fan. So did he acknowledge the blues music that he got some of his lyrics and some of his even movement from?
Yeah, well, look, I give props to any and every entertainer who can make it in this business.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's very, very difficult.
Right.
Very different. Now, my uncle and Elvis were like this.
Okay.
They were buddies. And if he didn't have anything wrong to say about him, I surely didn't, because my uncle been in this business a lot longer than me.
Right.
You know, and they taught me, you know, so, you know, as far as, you know, there's not only Elvis, you got the Rolling Stones.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you got all these other acts that copied our music,
right.
You know. And I remember on one show that they did, I don't know if it was the Grammys or something, where they tried to give homage to some of these Black artists that inspired them to play the music that they did, and the media shut it down.
Oh, wow.
You know, the media shut it down. I mean, I was going like, yeah, okay, yeah, you giving your props to the right people, you know, and it was shut down so quickly.
Wow.
Shut down so quickly. So, you know, when they're saying that is inbred in this culture. It's
Right.
definitely inbred in this culture into corporations and businesses and things like that, you know. But as far as the music industry is concerned, and that's why you have so many people going into this business, because it's the only way that they can achieve the freedom,
Hmm.
you know, to say and write and to
Right.
express themselves, you know, without, you know, wearing a suit and tie.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that suit and tie going on. What advice do you give to other folks that are thinking about getting into the music business? Like I mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people are kind of following Prince's footsteps and other footsteps and trying to be more independent and not depend as much on the record labels. I know we've got all kinds of social media. So we got people that are releasing their music through
Yeah.
YouTube and Reverb Nation and a number of other
Right.
things that
Yeah.
are out there. So what is your advice to young people when you see them in your current town and everything, and they're telling you that they want to break into this business that you've been in for decades? So what advice do you give to young?
My advice to them is study.
Mhm.
You have to study. You have to find out why do you have this freedom to write your own songs, to publish your own songs, to have your own label, you know, where did it come from? You know, it came from the backs of
Mhm.
other artists that were there before you, who
Right.
struggled, who had the green book, you
Mhm.
know. They couldn't go into restaurants. They couldn't go into hotels. They couldn't go into bathrooms and stuff unless it was for colored people or for white people. And that's the signs that they had up. You know, these people, and they had their music was stolen. You know, they weren't getting their royalties. They
Right.
weren't getting anything, you know. So you got to look at those groups, you know, like the whole Motown Review. You got to look at Little Anthony and Imperials, Gladys Knight, Patti LaBelle, Dionne Warwick. You got to look at these people who paved the way for you to be where you are right now in order to have the freedom to go out here and publish your own music, to do it
Right.
all. You have to, if you want to be in the game, then you better study the game, you know. And people, media is good, but you have to have a story.
Right.
Media don't want to hear about you. They want to hear about the people that came before you, how who inspired you, you
Mhm.
know. So don't talk about you. You talk about how you was inspired by Ella Fitzgerald, Sammy Davis Jr., you know, and all of these other people who paved the way for you to get here today. They struggled and they strived and they blood, sweat, and tears for us to even be here, to be in this business, you
Yeah,
know.
that makes a lot of sense. What do you say to those people that are fans and they hear about these astronomical ticket costs? I know that Beyonce has got some real high costs and everything else, and some people are going like, that's going too far, the pricing and the tickets. But you've been in the game, and I know that there were times that you probably remember the Chitlin circuit and some of those other circuits where the costs were nowhere near that. And I know that those circuits still exist because you still got people that are out there struggling to get paid even to this day. But on the other
Right.
side, people that are getting paid astronomically. So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that the ticket prices are way too high. And you know, some of these artists got to remember where they came from. They weren't born rich, you
Mhm.
know, and they got rich off the backs of the poor people who could afford their $10 tickets or whatever, or $20 tickets. But when they're getting up into the hundreds and 200s and 300s, you can't afford that. You know, Prince's first concert that I produced was, you could see Prince in the Revolution, $4.75. You know, now you could imagine seeing Prince for $4 and at the door $4.75. I mean, that was it. You know, but you know, you always have to give back. Where's the give back situation coming from here? You know what I mean? You know you're going to sell out the crowd, you know, the auditorium or wherever you performing at. So charge a decent price where people can, the people who got you there can afford it.
Yeah.
You know, now they're making it difficult for the people who got you there to even see you.
Uh,
You know, it's difficult. You know, I mean, look. I wouldn't pay it
Right.
to myself, you know. And I know that a lot of people who are in the hood who help make these artists, you know, they're complaining,
Yeah.
you know.
On the flip side of that, I know a lot of, and I mentioned that I kind of alluded to it earlier. A lot of artists don't feel that they don't get paid their worth, and a lot of times, even if you've been in the game for a while, you get festivals and other things that want you to pay for little, pay for nothing. Sometimes they want you to pay for the door, pay for things around that space, or they don't want to pay you your worth. So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts when you hear artists that have been in the game for a number of years and festivals want to, pay them little to nothing, or don't think of the music as being important, or they don't want to pay them their just dues or even a
Yeah.
competitive rate. So I was just wondering, what are
Well,
your
what,
thoughts?
you know, first of all, how do you put it on your worth? How do you put a number on your worth?
Right.
You know, because it's impossible to put a number on your worth. You know, to me, I'm worth $1 billion. You're worth $1 billion or $1 trillion. You know, but that's why you hire the people that you hire to work for you so that you can get the money that you should be getting.
Right.
You know what I mean? But a lot of these artists, they don't want to hire a lawyer because they
Mhm.
don't want to pay them.
Right.
They don't want to hire an agent or a manager because they don't want to pay them.
Mhm.
You know, I've known artists who were signed with publishing, had publishing deals with Michael Jackson's publishing company and everything, and the people who actually got the deal for them, who negotiated the terms and the money and what they're supposed to get every year for writing certain amount of songs per year, and then when the next year comes up and they supposed to get double what they got on from the previous year, uh, instead of them going to the attorney going like, hey man, or woman, you know, negotiate these terms for me.
Right.
They don't do it because they don't want to pay them.
Mm.
So they go and they talk to the people directly. And they spend hours and hours and hours on the phone with these companies directly, and they come out with getting enough money just to pay the taxes on their last money,
Wow.
and they're not getting it and stuff. So you gotta hire the right people to work for you.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of other people sometimes complain, and I know that it probably is very much true in cities like New York and Minneapolis, and definitely has even been true here in North Carolina and the different cities and everything. But I do know that sometimes artists will complain about that crap in the barrel mentality, where they feel that other people are trying to pull them down when they are actually rising to stardom and everything. So I just wondered if
Yeah,
that's something that you've had
absolutely.
to deal with, and how did you deal with that? Because I know a lot of times people will hear those outer critics and those inner critics, including the critics in our own heads, and it'll
Right,
let us stop what we're doing and stop being going for the dreams that we need to go, whether we're 70 or 20 or whatever the different ages
right. Hey,
and everything. So, how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure that there have been times that there have been people, even in your own neighborhoods, whether it's Minneapolis or there in New York or a number of other places. I think you've been out in California as well, that have told you that you weren't going to make it or that you would never succeed, and you've had a 60-year career. So how have you
yeah,
dealt
right.
with
Yeah.
critics?
Well, and I'm sure that a lot of people know this. Don't ever give up on your dream.
Right.
Don't ever give up. I worked jobs that I didn't want to, in order to pay for studio time.
Mhm.
Working in factories, working for pizza companies, not delivering, but working, making the damn pepperoni and stuff, and cutting that stuff up and everything. So stick to your dreams and stuff. And there were a lot of people who wrote books on Prince, at the very beginning had said to me, hey, you need exposure, and we can't pay you for this and that and that and that. And yes, there was a time when you do need that exposure and stuff, and you do it for nothing, just to be in the book. But now being that you've done so many of them and you got the exposure and they still trying to play the same game, hey, you can get exposure. And I go like, look, hey, I got exposure. What I need to do is eat now, okay?
Right.
I gotta eat. I got to pay my mortgage. I got kids I got to take care of and stuff like that. So you're going by your own risk at that point, you know. But if you know your worth as far as your content,
Mm-hmm.
and they need that content, then you can negotiate a price for interviews or
Right.
any other things that you may get, and still you still have to have the right people behind you who believe in who you are and what you're doing, and to get there. Now, people have asked me, well, did you know that Prince is going to be this humongous icon, this great star? No, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who said that I knew, I'm telling you right now, and I knew that he was going to make it, no, they did not. They just trying to get exposure. They trying to get into the game, but all I wanted for him was to have a career.
Right.
Because I know I was never going to see Prince working at McDonald's or Burger King or some grocery store bagging up groceries or whatever and stuff. That wasn't for him. He was a
Yeah.
true musician. He was a true artist. He worked all the time. And I mean, they said that James Brown was the hardest working man in show business. I beg to differ. It was Prince. Prince was the hardest work. Look, when he rehearsed at my house, and they did 12 hours a day. 12 hours a day of rehearsing. And then one evening, I went over to Prince's house. Right after 12 hours of practice, he's down in his basement practicing drums.
Wow.
This is after 12 hours of practice. Now, this man, he had his thing cut out for him. He knew what he wanted, and he was not going to fail by any means. He was not going to fail. And the only way that what he could do to achieve his goals was to work hard. And I put that on everyone. If you want this, you got to work hard. And that's not only in music, that's in any and everything that you do. You have to work hard. You got to go beyond, and especially you're a person of color, because they always said, I'm pretty sure your parents said to you, and my parents said to me, look, whatever that you do, you got to work twice as hard as this other guy, this white guy. You got to work twice as hard as him.
Yeah, they definitely said that. But the other thing I was curious about is they also say that Prince was very much of a slave driver to his musicians. I've had the privilege of talking to a few of them that have been on Zach's show and other shows. But I was just wondering, was that something that you observed as well? Because they said that he was not a easy person to work with, because he was going to make sure that it was done to almost perfection, for lack of a better term.
Well, after he received a lot of success, and these people wanted to play with him, they wanted to work with him, then you got to take the bitter with the sweet, baby. If he's the one that's signing the checks and he's the boss, and he says you got to be here, be there at a certain hour, then you better be there. You got to be there. And slave driver, that's if he's not paying him.
Right.
But if he's paying you, I mean, look, he wasn't even paying me, and I wasn't even looking for nothing for him. But the first time that he was in a recording studio with me, that night, he called me up, or I should say that early morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning. And this is after, he was in the studio with us for the very first time. He'd never been in the studio before. And he calls me up at 4 o'clock in the morning after me and the bass player was talking about how good he was, playing guitar for us. he calls me up and I go like, yo, what's up? He goes like, Pepe, I got to go back in the studio. I said, what are you talking about? I said, me and Wendell was just talking about how good you were. He was going like, no, man, I got to go back in. I got to correct something. I said,
Wow.
what's there to correct, man? I don't hear it. I didn't hear it. He said, believe me, man, I got to go back in. I called the studio that morning. I said, let Prince in the studio, let him do what he had to do. I was going golfing, you know. So the second time that he was in the studio ever, he went in by himself,
Oh wow.
you know, to clean up on some stuff that he thought wasn't good enough, you know. So why are you going to complain? You're in this business, you're traveling around the world, you're working with one of the #1 icons in the business. The best thing for you to do is do your job, and then maybe later on you can get a spin-off.
Right.
You know, hey, I played with Prince for 15 years. I played with Prince for 8 years or 12 years and stuff. And maybe you can get it with another band, or you can create your own band and stuff. You got to, you know, what is your dream? I know artists now who I recorded with me, and they haven't even been in the studio in years.
Oh
They're
wow.
just they're just musicians,
Hmm.
you know, playing for other people.
Well,
You
that's the
know, the
one thing.
drummer that we had, Dale Alexander, he was the youngest one of the whole band in 94 East. He was 16 years old playing drums, man. Like you know, I mean, this guy was playing drums like he was playing 20 years.
Wow.
And then he later on went on with Robbie Krieger and the Doors, you know. And then my keyboard player, Pierre, he was 17. He's now MD for the Commodores.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you know, but they're musicians, you know. Me, I'm a musician, but I'm a producer and I'm a songwriter,
Right.
you know. I mean, I love that. I love expressing myself, and I consult other artists now in the business about their content, you know. When you do interviews, you know, don't focus on you, focus on somebody that inspired you, you know, uh, all of these things, your songwriting and all of that, you know. And I try to help them, not to make enemies, you
Yeah.
know.
That makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of these artists, including both old and new artists, are looking at some new forms of revenue. And I just wondered if you've been exploring or even thinking about this whole NFT space, because I do know that that is something that more and more people
Yeah.
are looking into. And I was just wondering, is that something that you think is a legitimate way of making money in the music industry, or is it something that you are a little bit cautious about?
Well, you got to be cautious about anything when you invest in money, period. But the NFT, non-fungible tokens or whatever they call it, you know, it's good. I think that is good. But like again, you just can't jump in it and expect all of this windfall that's going to come in. So, you know, once you get on that, how do you draw the people that you're on it? You
Right.
know, what do you have that they're going to come and buy your pictures or your music or whatever? How are you going to get these people to know that you're out there? So to me, it's no different than radio.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, you could put out a record and it's released on Tuesday, and but how are you going to let the people know that your record is out there, you know, without marketing and promoting? So you still, nevertheless, whether it's NFT or radio or anything, you still have to market and you have to promote it. And to promote it properly in these days in America and stuff, you know, it's going to cost you some money. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people don't want to pay that money, or they don't have it to pay, you
Well, that's one of
know.
the things that's curious about. I know a lot of people complain about within the minority community that we have all these folks that have made tons of money, but we don't really have that much of our own distribution system and or our own labels. Of course, we all know the success of Motown and Berry Gordy, and we know some of the other success, but comparatively speaking, we don't have as much. And definitely in the movie industry, there are barely any. Well, there's Tyler Perry, but there's not as many as some of the other cultures. So I was just wondering, is that a mistake that you think that
Uh-oh.
we've made, that we actually need to get more on the business?
Yeah, we have to start these businesses. We have to have our own distribution companies. We got to have our own labels and things like that. We have to do it. I mean, I have my own label, but it's still difficult. I started one of the greatest artists of our time,
Right.
and it's still difficult.
Gotcha. Well, tell our listeners around the globe about your label and maybe even some of the artists that you have on your own label, because the folks that are watching, including some folks that are in that investment space, maybe knowing about the label and who you've got handling. And I know you said you've got some of your own music on your label, but I'm sure folks would be interested in knowing who some of the artists are that you're working with and the name of the label and how the label is going.
Yeah, well, the label is Rio Deal, Reodeo. And if you say that 3 times fast, it's the Rio Deal, Rio Deal, Rio Deal. And we were distributed by E1 Entertainment, and now we're not. So we're looking for distribution, but we can put out records, music all over. We can produce. I have my own studio where we can produce. I have E-Class on my label. He's a gospel hip hop artist.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my music on there, 94 East. We got Monet Love, who was a single artist on our label. We also have Michaela Lockhart, who was on our label. She's now on the traveling tour with Hamilton, and she's real good. And mainly I do a lot of consulting. So you can get in touch with me through pepemusic.com, and we will consult and help you to get more success in this business and what you have to do. And we try to tell our clients not to make enemies out here, because that enemy that you make today might be president of a record label tomorrow. And so you have to be humble as much as you can. I've worked with a lot of artists who just talked about them, like they were the biggest thing, and they never made it,
Right.
but it's luck of the draw too, being at the right place at the right time. There's no guarantees, just like in life, you never know. You can get hit by a bus, a car, a train, a plane, or anything. It's the luck of the draw. So you just try to do the right thing. You try to have good content that's going to inspire someone that can catch on to what you're doing and what you're saying, and pray. You got to do it, man.
No doubt about that. How important do you think it is to have faith in your musical and entertainment journey? Because you just mentioned that, and I know you mentioned church earlier. So how important do you think it is to have journey and in your entertainment and business walk?
Yeah, well, you have to have faith in what you're doing. In other words, if you don't believe in what you're doing, nobody else is going to believe it. If you're doing it just for the money, that's not it. You got to do it for the love that you have for your craft, no matter what it is, whether you are a lawyer, a doctor, or whatever, but as a musician, you have to believe in what you do, and you have to practice. Mm-hmm. You have to practice, because the times that you're not practicing, somebody else is. They might want it bad than you, so you have to have the faith that you can do it. Hang in there. And if you see other people who you feel that are less deserving as you are, and you're going like, well, how did that person get there? How could they do it, man? And that person sold drugs. That person did this. That person did that. you can't dwell on that. You just have to keep doing what you're doing, and your time will come. But when your time comes, you have to be ready. You have to be ready. If someone say, "Hey, what do? You go, "Oh, I'm a songwriter." Oh, cool. Can I hear any of your stuff? Well, I don't have anything right now, but I could send you something. No, that's not good enough. They say, "Can I hear something now?" Yeah, sure. Give me your email address. I'll send you 3 tunes right now, that I just finished, or things that I have. You have to be ready all the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of temptations within the music industry, and I know you mentioned that earlier and everything, including some of those that your uncle and others went through, whether it's drugs, whether it's the women, whether it's a number of other things in that space. So I was just wondering, what advice do you give to people to go on that journey but resist those temptations? Because I do know that those temptations can be very much tempting and everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, they're very tempting, but you have to stick to what you believe in. And if you're walking in one direction and you on that straight line in that direction, but over here on the side over here, there's this pretty girl, man, and she's looking at you. Or there's some drug addict over there holding up some candy for you. You know, if you move over here on this side, you're losing your direction.
right.
So you got to stay the path, man. You got to walk the walk. You have to keep going. You can't be tempted. You have to be strong. And a lot of these people are not strong anymore. You look at what's happening in Hollywood. They, they're weak. How many marriages last? How many people who are dating this person over here, and then a year later they cheated on this person, and now they date this person over here? So how could this person feel free with this person after they cheated with this person? Now, well, they're going to have in the back of their mind, well, they might cheat with me. If you cheated on this one, then you might cheat with me and stuff. So, where's the trust?
Right.
Where's the honor? Where's the respect?
Mm-hmm.
So if you pick somebody that's going to be your partner, don't get in it so quickly. Make sure that this is your partner. You got to talk about anything, everything, to make sure that this is the person that you're going to be with for the rest of your life or for whatever, but you can't stray from your point. There are a lot of artists who have been on a right direction, and they got some girl pregnant, or the girl got pregnant, from some other guy or whatever, and the whole career is gone because they got kids now, and then you got to take care of your kids. And so now your dream is gone. So you have to protect yourself the best way that you can. You get into this business for the love of the work, the love of the art, not the money, not the girls, not the fame.
Right.
All of that is a side effect. That's a side effect that if you can get paid for what you're doing,
Right.
more power to you, brother. You know what I mean? But if you're doing it just for the love of the music and stuff and the love of what you're doing, and you get paid, it's a good side effect.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Getting ready to wind down very shortly and everything. But what are some of the we alluded to some of them, but other than the ones that we've mentioned, what are some of the other advice that you would give to folks that are thinking about going into the entertainment business, other than those things that you have already mentioned and all in that space? Because definitely I know a lot of folks are interested in being everything from a producer to concert promoters, and we know that that
Yeah,
can be an interesting story because I know a good friend of mine, and you'll love this. It's a good buddy of mine that used to be the rental coordinator at our Carolina theater here in Durham. He's one of my best friends, but he used to tell me that everybody's a promoter until it's time to cut the check, because that means everybody got a great idea. But then when it's time for him to come and tell them how much it costs, then a lot of them fall by the wayside because they don't have the
right.
money and or the resources to make it happen. So they might have a beautiful dream, but they also got to have the resources in order to make it happen.
Well, you first of all, you got to make sure that this is what you want to do.
Right.
You got to make sure that this is exactly what you want to do, and you have to stay the course, man.
Mhm.
You got to stay the course. You got to keep at it, and you have to treat people with respect.
Right.
I've seen a lot of producers go into studios and they telling the engineer, "Hey, I'm the producer. Do this, do that, and blah, 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 blah." To get the best work out of an engineer who's working in a recording studio, because that person is there every day.
Mhm.
That person knows that room better than you. So you go in there and you go like, okay, this room, set everything up. When everything is done, just let me know. If you need anything, just let me know. I'll be in another room, you know, or I'll be on the couch taking a rest or something. Yeah. I, I learned how to produce from Tony Sylvester. Tony Sylvester was one of the members and producers of The Main Ingredient.
Mhm.
He was one of the other person that taught me how to produce. You let the people do what they got to do. And I would go see him. He'd be on the couch in the lobby, just taking it easy. And then when everything is ready, then he'll come in. Then he'll go, okay, let's do the rhythm section, you know? And the rhythm section is recorded and stuff. And he goes like, okay, give me a little rough mix on it and I'll be back. And let them do their job. Let people do what they're supposed to be doing. Don't try to do their work.
Right.
Let them do what they got to do, and then you do what you have to do. So you have to learn how to, a producer is like a psychiatrist.
Mhm.
You got to learn how to get along with people so that you can get the best out of them,
Right.
so that you can get the best work that you're producing.
Now that makes a lot of sense, but whether it's producers or whether it's other businesses, you got a lot of folks that like to micromanage. It doesn't sound like that gentleman you were talking about was going to micromanage, but it does sound like you got a lot of folks that don't want to give people the ability to do their work and to do the
Yeah,
ability that they have. They want to do the work for the person and that whole kind
yeah,
of system. And I've seen that in the music industry. I've seen that in the definitely in the media industry and a number of other industries. But the best work to me, and I don't know whether you would agree with me, Pepe, is those that allow people to bring their A game to the table and everything. And then if they are not bringing their A game, then you can work on correcting it and all in that space. But you don't sit there trying to do their job, your job, and everybody else's job at the same time.
yeah. Well, you can't have that. You can't. You got to see the person who's supposed to be doing that, and that's their expertise. That's what they do.
Right.
You know, you do what you do. You do what you're best at. Why are you going to try to do this person's job? And and this person's been doing this job. This person knows this job.
Right.
You know of it, but this
Right.
person knows it.
Right.
You know.
Exactly.
Now there's a way that you can communicate of what you are looking for or what you need,
Right.
and see if this person can do this. I mean, and like I said earlier, you have to get out of that person what you need
Mm-hmm.
to have a good product. The
Yeah.
bottom line is a good product.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And you're
very
not
much.
going to get it through yelling and screaming or trying to prove that you're the boss, you're the head honcho, you're this, you're that. You're not going to get it that way. The only way you're going to get it is allow everyone else to do what their expertise is,
Right.
or even give them a chance. I've been in studios where an engineer would say, "Hey, I got an idea." I've seen producers go like, "No, my idea is better. I'm gonna, you
Mm-hmm.
know." Me, I go, "Well, what's your idea? Let me see what you got."
Yeah.
You know, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, it's still fine
Right.
because you're getting that person to create something of what you're trying to create.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
coming up with, he or she is coming up with ideas,
Yeah.
and it's always good. to get a fresh idea from somebody,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
that makes a lot of sense. I know that I had the privilege, and you had actually mentioned earlier about Prince and everything. And one of I mentioned the Carolina Theater, and she's actually working in another job. But there was a young lady who moved down here to Durham because of her husband's job at Duke. But she remembers literally living right next to Prince. So that is Noelle James. I think that is her name, even from her maiden name and everything, because I think she kept that, if I remember correctly, and everything. But she literally does remember that experience. And like you said, a lot of folks, even in that neighborhood, I don't think that they knew how great Prince was going to be, because she literally grew up and is of the same age that Prince would be if he was living now, because they literally grew up together and everything. I want to say she said she was either 2 or 3 doors down from him, and I'm trying to get her to come on to one of these shows to share her stories. And I know that Zach has got a good friend who I think actually played with Prince by the name of Vanessa Barlow or something like that, but she had actually worked in that camp as well. So definitely, a lot of those folks are definitely remembering. Like you said, if somebody told him he was going to be the icon that he became, a lot of folks would not have believed that at that time. So
Yeah, they wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't
yeah.
believe it, you know? His manager, his first manager, um, I went to his office one day and I said, how come you're not doing manager duties like what you're supposed to do? Now, yeah, he helped Prince get signed and everything. I'm not taking that away from him. He did good by him. But now that he's signed, he needs you to do this. And he told me, he said, well, because he had another company that he was working at. And he says, why should I leave my company for somebody who probably won't make it?
Hmm.
You know, I was in shock when he said that to me. And I said, okay. I said, you're out. And he goes, Pepe, you manage him. And I said, look, I'm not a manager. I said, but I'm not going to let Prince get screwed out here. I said,
Right.
I didn't use screwed, but, I said, I'm not going to let him get messed up. I went back to Prince's house and I said, he's out. I said, your manager's out. He says, okay.
Hmm.
He didn't say why. He
Right.
didn't say, what did he say? He just said, okay, you
Mhm.
know. And then I went and I got Prince another manager after I managed him for 3 months. Don Taylor, who managed Diana Ross, Marvin Gaye, and Bob Marley and the Wailers,
Wow.
you know. And I've met him through the years, because he used to manage Little Anthony and the Imperials,
Oh, wow.
and that's why you don't make enemies,
Right.
because you can always go. And I didn't like all the stuff that Don was doing with the Imperials and stuff, but I didn't make him my enemy, you know. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to go back to him, if I would have made him my enemy.
But along those same lines, are you sometimes surprised? Because I know a lot of people are oftentimes making contacts. They say that making contacts is one of the most important things in business, along with what you've alluded to before, which is communications and making sure that you are having good communications with your clients and or the vendors and a number of other people that you work with and everything. But I do know that a lot of times in the music industry, whether you're in New York, California, North Carolina, Florida, or wherever, even overseas, a lot of us gather a lot of contacts, but I don't know that there is enough follow up. It sounds to me like all during your 60 years, you have done a good job of follow up and even maintaining relationships with these people. But I do know that even myself have been guilty of sometimes making some amazing contacts and not doing the follow up. So, how important do you think it is to one, create the contacts, and two, maintain the follow up?
Yeah, well, if you make contact, and this is my theory and stuff of, I don't know it all, but all I can do is say the experience that I go through. And if you make a good contact, then you must stay in contact.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
As simple as that, twice a week, you know,
Right,
3 times a week. Even if you just talk saying hello. Hey,
right,
I'm just saying hello, keeping in touch. How's everything going? How's the family? Everybody's fine. Not looking for anything, don't need anything, just staying in touch, talk to you soon.
yeah.
Because if you stay in the frame of mind of these contacts that could help you, one day, you never know. You never know what's going to happen. One day, they can be doing a huge project And just because you stayed in contact with that person, they might go, I got a call the other day from this friend of mine who was just saying hello. I think he'll be great for the part.
Right.
Or great for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Out of sight, out of mind.
No, that's
You
very
know?
much the case. Well, like I said, this has been an enjoyable and totally wonderful conversation. I'm definitely gonna have to get you to come back on and everything. But one of the things that we do on all our shows is allow folks to tell how they can be reached, how they can be gotten in contact with, and all of that, and definitely any new projects that they've got. And you definitely mentioned that book, and you shared a couple of the stories from the book and all in that way. So if you'll share the book and definitely how folks can get into contact with you and any new projects that you've got. And then one thing that we do, Pod TV, which was founded by Nick Palveda and Camp Calhoun, is a global network. So any message of positivity and hope that you want to give to the world, because we don't know if the world has been going through a lot, whether it's been the pandemic, whether it's been the war in Ukraine, whether it was 9/11 way back there almost more than 20 years ago now, and everything. But we know that this has been a very perilous times that we've been facing over the last decade or so. So any message of positivity and hope that you can give, that is almost like a personal mission of mine, that I try to get all my guests to give some message of positivity and hope. So if you can tell folks, one, how they can reach you or get in contact with you about the book and any other projects you've got, and a message of positivity and hope.
All right. Yeah. Well, first of all, Mark, I'd like to thank you, and I appreciate the invite.
Yes.
You asked some most interesting and appreciated questions. I love them, man. It's more than just the average person asking me, or average interviewer asking me these questions. I love your questions. You got a lot of insight, and I respect you for that, and I thank you for the invite. I love that. And as far as people getting in touch with me, you can reach me at pepemusic.com and get my book, If You See Me, My 6-Decade Journey in Rock and Roll. The foreword was done by my uncle, Clarence Collins. He's a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer from Little Anthony and the Imperials. Got some great stories in there as well. To move on to tell people about the positive thoughts and everything, I remember reading a book years ago. I must have been 12 or 13 years old. And that book, the title was The Nature of Positive Thinking. And I know that a lot of people get upset and they, don't know how to react to that, as well as I did it in my earlier years. But what I learned from that is the nature of positive thinking is not to dwell on the negative. Mm-hmm. No matter what happens in your life, you think about flowers, you think about the birds, you think about your children, you think about people, you think about sports. You always think about something positive rather than to dwell on negativity that'll help pull you out of where you've been or where you are, the frame of mind that you are. So my doors are always open. You can reach me, like I said, at pepemusic.com. I'm consulting a few artists right now and trying to help them to build careers in the business. And, and just for some of these rappers out here, just because you hear someone else cursing and saying bad things and having success by doing so, that doesn't mean that you have to do it. Right. There's other ways to be hard without cursing or using certain words. There's other ways. And songwriters, there's so many ways that you can say, I love you, and you have to find the right combination, so that people can identify of how you say it.
Right.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I definitely hope that you will make a return trip on the Pod TV network. And like I said, I'll definitely reach out to Zach and some other folks. But I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I hope that you'll come back and we'll explore some more in the other parts of your journey. And definitely, I would love to have you come back on whenever you're available. But I know that this has been a thoroughly enjoyable conversation for me. And I've learned a lot about some icons that I didn't know about because you had the pleasure of meeting them. So to hear their stories from the lens of you as a child and you as an adult has definitely added a lot to my thoughts around some of those icons. So I definitely appreciate it. And I definitely look forward to hopefully a return trip in the not too distant future.
Absolutely. I'll be glad to. Peace and love, brother.
Peace and love.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mark. Thank you
No
so much.
problem.